All right, thank you for being here today for our CEO conversation. Today, we are delighted to welcome Matt Ode to the group. Matt has an amazing story of overcoming a health difficulty in his early 20s. He was diagnosed with cancer and has quite a journey and quite a story to tell, even to the point of being in a coma for a number of days and having to be brought back to life. And so I thought, boy, what a wonderful inspirational story for us to hear Matt's journey and to learn as we all face difficulties in our life, maybe not to the extreme that Matt had to go through in the early part of his life, but the ability to come back after a difficult time. I thought, boy, Matt could come in and really encourage and inspire us today. So Matt, welcome to our CEO conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great introduction, Ken. I'm very excited to share my message and story to everybody.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit, for those that maybe aren't as familiar with your story, can you kind of walk us through that story and maybe some of the lessons you learned through the process?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go through the entire story here today. I'll start from the very beginning, and I'll give you guys some messages and tips along the way. So right now, I'm currently 28 years old. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. If most people probably know that from LeBron James. But to start off my story, I just want to ask you guys a quick question. How many of you have gone through some type of adversity in your life? If you have, just raise your hand. You can simply raise your hand. Good. I'm sure everybody has, especially during these times. So what I've realized is with adversity comes a story. But it's not just a story, it's your own personal story that you can use to go out and become a better version of yourself, but also help other people with that story. And that is what I've been able to do with my story, is to first find my purpose and then use it to help other people. So I'm excited to share my story with you guys today. And we're going to start off with a very important date. And I want you guys to remember this. It's March 17th of 2016. So it's St. Patrick's Day. I'm 24 years old at the time. I'm a personal trainer, very healthy, very fit. I'm out at the bars with my friends. It's St. Patrick's Day, just having a good time, having a drink or two. And I run into this girl, and her name was Lauren. And we get to talking, and eventually I get her number. And, the weeks go on. We start talking a little bit more, going on a couple dates. And within a month, we end up starting to date. So we're doing all these summer activities, from kayaking to hiking to all these adventurous stuff. And all of a sudden, I started to notice these minor back pains. Now, at the time, I'm 24 years old. I'm like, I'm invincible. I'll be fine. I'll just let it go. So weeks go by. The back pain starts to get worse and worse. So I said, okay, I'll go to a chiropractor. Go to a chiropractor, get it checked out. Seems to be nothing wrong. Well, I just say, I'm going to keep letting it go. So a couple months go by, and eventually it gets to the point where I can barely walk. Still me being stubborn, I decided not to go to see a doctor until one day. I was over at Lauren's house, and I ended up staying the night. And I ended up waking up, and I ended up puking up blood that night. And I was like, okay, something's definitely wrong here. So I better go get it checked out. I end up going to the hospital. I'm super dizzy at this point, very fatigued. And they do a blood test on me. And they found out that I had lost 2/3 of the blood that was circulating in my body, which is equivalent to being shot with a gun. So eventually they rushed me to a more local hospital, where they ended up giving me 6 bags of blood. And they thought it was an ulcer that was causing the bleeding. So that night I ended up going into a surgery, and they end up, what I thought was removing or closing up the ulcer. So I'm in the recovery room the next day. I'm eating cereal with my parents, and I'm just thinking it's all over. I'm ready to go home. And then all of a sudden, the doctor walks in with a blank stare in his eyes. And right then, I knew something was wrong. He comes over to my parents and he says, "Can I please speak to you two in private?" Immediately, I stopped him and I said, "No, you can tell me whatever you want to tell them." So he sat down, he grabbed my hand, he looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Matt, we have found an 11-centimeter tumor in your small intestine. We have to rush you to the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the top hospitals in the country, immediately to do further testing, because we don't know what type of cancer it is yet, and we need to get you treated immediately." So after a lot of phone calls, at that point, I just remember looking over at my parents, and they were crying at that time. And the only thing I could actually think of was not worry, was not stress, was not anxiety. It was, how am I going to be strong for them? How am I going to give this news to Lauren, who's only been dating me at this point for 2 to 2.5 months? I don't know if she's going to stay with me or not. How am I going to be strong for my friends, the rest of my family, all these people? And here's a good lesson for everybody. Everyone is going to get some type of unexpected news in your life, but you have two ways to look at that news. You can say, why is this happening to me? Or how is this happening for me? I'm going to say it one more time. Why is this happening to me? Or how is this happening for me? Now, if you look at it, why is this happening to me? You're going to start making excuses. You're going to start having that self-pity. You're going to start blaming other people. But if you ask, how is this happening for me? You're going to use it as a lesson. You're going to learn from it. You're going to become stronger from it. I obviously decided to say, how is this happening for me? Even in the darkest and most difficult times of my life. So I ended up going to the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic. We did multiple tests on me, and they found out that I had stage 3C testicular cancer, which is the highest form of testicular cancer you could have. Right then and there, all my friends, all my family started coming in, and then Lauren arrives. At that point, I'm still like in shock of what's going on. But when I see Lauren, I just broke down. And I didn't know what she was going to do, but she literally just came over to me, gave me a hug. We started crying together. And right then and there, I knew she was going to be my rock throughout this entire journey. So that day, I was put on 3 intense different chemo cocktails for 5 different rounds. And basically, if anybody knows, about chemotherapy, it's a very, very potent drug. It destroys all your good cells and it destroys all your bad cells. So within a week, I had already lost my hair. I was extremely fatigued. I was extremely nauseous all the time. And to make matters worse, in the middle of my chemotherapy, I ended up losing my 4-year-old puppy, Duke, who was diagnosed with cancer before me. And I would take him to every single one of his chemotherapy sessions before I was diagnosed with cancer. And we fought this battle together. And I'm telling you right there, that broke me down mentally so much that I almost started to just give up on myself. I started to make those excuses. I started to blaming other people and asking God, why? Why are you doing this to me right now? Why is this happening to me? And for probably 4, 5, 6 days, until one day I was in my bed. I was really tired. I had just gone through chemotherapy, and I said, and I prayed, I said, God, is this what Duke would want me to do? Is this what my family would want me to do? Is this what Lauren would want me to do? And I said, absolutely not. So I got my butt up off that bed and I started walking a little bit that day. I started eating a little bit healthier. I started doing the things I needed to do. And eventually I ended up finishing my rounds of chemotherapy. And it was a really, that day of me finishing chemotherapy was like, I felt like accomplished Mount Everest. But, so my dad, he said, you know what, Matt, in order to celebrate, you finishing chemotherapy, we're going to host an event and we're just going to see how many people show up. So Thanksgiving morning, Cleveland, Ohio host was called a turkey trot. It's a 5 and 10K race where thousands and thousands of people come. And he said, we're just going to have people come and they can do the race if they want. We had no idea how many people were going to show up. And we get there on Thanksgiving morning and we had over 400 people show up to just give my support and celebrate. And right then and there, we ended up calling the race Mustaches, or event at that time, Mustaches for Matt. Here's why. So when I was going through chemotherapy, I ended up losing my hair in the very first week, but I had this really dirty mustache that I said, you know what, I'm going to keep on as long as I possibly can because that's the only hair I got left in me. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And all of my friends, they noticed that. So they said, you know what, we're going to grow a mustache with you as well. So all the dads and all of my guy friends grew mustaches my entire chemotherapy. Wow. So that's why we ended up calling the event Mustaches for Matt. So that day we ended up giving all the ladies and girls mustaches, fake mustaches, and we had given t-shirts, and it was just such an amazing day. And here's my next, message for you is whatever you're going through right now, it might be a difficult moment now, or it might have been a difficult moment. I want you to realize that you have so much more support in your life than you could ever imagine. I didn't even know probably half the people that were at this event. And I just know that they were praying for me, They were thinking of me, and just to know that you do have support in your life. So if you feel like you're fighting these battles or this journey alone, as a CEO or just as a parent or anybody, that you feel like you're alone in this journey, I promise you're not. And there's somebody out there that will support you and guide you in any way that you possibly need them. So that was probably that was phase one of this. And now this is where all the real complications start to come into play. So after the event, I end up going to my oncologist, and he sits down with me and he says, Matt, we have some good news and we have some bad news. Good news, your 11-centimeter tumor has now shrunk to 3 centimeters. Bad news, your tumor is wrapped around what's called your inferior vena cava. Now, your inferior vena cava is a central vein that starts from the bottom of your upper body that goes to your heart. We're going to have to do a 12-hour surgery with 3 different surgeons to remove this vein, and we don't know the complications. So I ended up having to wait about 2.5 weeks for the surgery, and those were the longest 2.5 weeks of my entire life. And I didn't talk to many people. I just kind of kept to myself, and I just kept praying. And I just kept praying that everything would be okay. So eventually the day comes, and when I arrive, I'm about 140 pounds. So I've lost about 40 to 45 pounds throughout chemotherapy. This is probably 5 months, since my diagnosis. And it's now January, and I am going to get my surgery done. So it ended up being a 12-hour surgery. They removed the vena cava. Coming out of the surgery, though, I was 200 pounds from swelling in my stomach.
Wow.
I remember waking up 3 days after the surgery, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. It was even hard for me to talk. And I remember vaguely asking the doctor, is this okay? Is this normal? And he said, it's not normal, but the draining should eventually relieve from the body. They have a drain. Well, as a week goes by, I'm eventually making progress. I can walk a little bit. Draining's going down, and I'm released from the hospital. Well, 4 to 5 days after that, all of a sudden the draining just stops like that. Within an hour, I'm in so much pain that I have to get rushed back to the emergency room, where they ended up having to drain 7 liters of fluid out of my body, causing me to go into complete kidney and liver failure. I had a cone drilled inside of my head to relieve potential brain swelling. I had a catheter in my neck and in my chest because I thought that I was going to be on dialysis the rest of my life. I had a breathing tube in my mouth, and I was in a coma for 2 weeks. Now, this is where my testament of faith comes into play, and it's massive. So while I was in my coma, we had 3 major prayer services where hundreds and hundreds of people would go to my local church and just pray for me. Well, in the middle of the last and third prayer service, that was the day that I woke up from my coma.
Wow.
And for me, it wasn't God saying, Matt, this is the end of your journey. This is only the beginning.
Mm.
And I just remember, for me, it wasn't like, oh, I can just wake up and walk out. No. And I probably only told this part of my story once or twice to anybody. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. Is when I was in my coma, Lauren and my parents were there every single day. They didn't leave the room. They just stayed with me. And Lauren would come over to me every day and hold my hand. And she would say, Matt, wake up and just pray for me and things like that. And that day, I ended up wiggling my fingers while she was holding my hand. And she came running over to my parents saying, Matt, I think Matt's awake. I think Matt's awake. And, no doctors, no nurses knew when I was going to wake up. My parents didn't think I was up there. Like, you're lying. There's no way. She's like, no, I do. And she grabbed my hand again, and I wiggled my fingers again. And that was my sign of waking up.
Wow.
So eventually, as the week goes by, I'm making some progress. My mind's not quite there because I've been through so much trauma, but they end up taking the breathing tube out of me. I can say a couple words, but not much. It's very hard to hold a conversation. I can't move. I'm bedridden, but I am making some slight progress. So they decided to take out one of the catheters in my neck. So as they're taking out the catheter in my neck, I end up having an irrhythm heartbeat, and I go into cardiac arrest. They end up having to do 8 minutes of CPR on me, and I go back into another 1-week coma. At this point, I'm now in the ICU for about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, and I wake up on Valentine's Day. I remember waking up, there's flowers and hearts everywhere, And I have Lauren and my parents still there right by my side. And at this point, I knew that I had to relive my entire life again. And from laying in my bed to sitting in my bed took almost an entire week with 3 to 4 nurses at a time helping me. And then from sitting to standing took almost another week. And from standing to taking my very first steps again almost took another week. So this was almost a 3-week process just to get me up from my bed and walking. And at this point, I've already had 4 surgeries in a matter of about less than a month, almost about a month. And I felt super dizzy when I was walking. I felt like something just wasn't right at the time, but I was still making progress. And eventually, after a little over a month, I was released from the ICU room and I was into a recovery room. And when I got into that recovery room, about 3 days into that recovery room, I was still making progress. But in my mind, I felt something was wrong. But in the nurses and doctors' eyes, I was making leaps and bounds and ready to go. So they're like, okay, we're going to wheel you into your final stage of physical therapy, and then we're going to get you out of here. As they're wheeling me out, I end up looking down at my stitches, which I have stitches from my left to my right hip from my surgeries. My stitches had popped open and my spleen was sticking out of my stomach. I ended up having to go back into a 5th major surgery, and they ended up having to do what's called an open wound surgery on me, where they couldn't close my stomach back up. They had to remove all my abdominals from my stomach, and they had to put a massive mesh to hold everything together. And this ended up taking a full year for my skin to eventually grow over. But after that surgery, I'm sure you can guess where I ended up back in the ICU room. Now, this was the turning point in my life. I woke up, and at this point, I was conscious now, not like coming out of the coma where I didn't know what was going on. This time I knew what was going on. But I was strapped to a bed with my arms and my legs tied, and I had a breathing tube in my mouth, so I couldn't say anything. I couldn't get anyone's attention. All I could do was sit, stare, and pray. And I remember praying to God at this point. I said, God, I am officially at rock bottom in my life. And I have 2 options here. I can give up on my life right now, or I can say I'm in the deepest and darkest part of my life, and the only place I can go is up. And this is a big advice. If any of you guys feel like you're in the darkest point in your life, or if you feel and you know somebody who might be there, I want you to encourage yourself or that person to know that there is a way out, and the only way is up. So what I ended up doing is eventually they ended up taking the breathing tube out of my mouth. They unstrapped me. And within 3 days in that ICU room, I got up off that bed and I walked further than I ever did previously to the ICU room, previously to that recovery room. Within 4 to 5 days, I was out of the ICU room, back into that recovery room. 2-3 days, I was out of that recovery room and into my final stages of physical therapy. Now, when I was in physical therapy, I had to relearn to do everything we take for granted, from sitting on a toilet to getting up off of a bed, to going up one step of stairs, like just the very basic stuff I had to relearn to do again. And I was in there for about a week and a half. And eventually I was released from the hospital after 53 days. And I was released on March 17th of 2017, exactly 1 year from when I met Lauren.
Wow.
And this was God putting somebody in my life for a reason. Lauren and my parents, and I had plenty of friends and family too, they're supporting me the whole way, but they stayed all 53 days in that hospital with me. Lauren would wake up at 6 a.m, fight the nurses because you're not allowed to come in till 7, but she had to go to work. So she would come in, just sit there with me because I couldn't talk for most of the time, go to work, come back, sit there until they kicked her out, and then repeat 53 straight days. Didn't go out with her friends, didn't do any of that stuff. She just stayed with me. Same with my parents, exact same thing. And then I have friends and family. So this was God saying, you need an angel by your side during this journey. And he gave me an angel. And, it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't think that it was it was just a coincidence that I got released that day. I know for a fact that that's a special day and that she was meant to be there. And I know somebody in your life is meant to be in your life for a reason as well. And, if you realize that person, I want you to tell them how much you love them, how much you care about them, especially during these times when you can't be around these people. Even if you can just call them or, virtually be with them, especially yesterday with Easter going on, just saying how much you appreciate those people in your life, because they are a big part, and you just don't know how long everyone's going to be there. So eventually I was thankfully released from that hospital. And when I was released from the hospital, I was down from 200 pounds to 110 pounds. I lost 90 pounds in 53 days. And that was from no eating. I couldn't eat anything and I couldn't drink anything. Everything was through IV. It was one of the worst feelings in the world because the only way I can get some moisture in my mouth was through a sponge that they would just put some water on. So when I got home, it wasn't just like rainbows and butterflies and I could just go walk and do whatever I want. I didn't have the accountability that I used to have with all the nurses and doctors coming in and pushing me to get healthy. So within a week or two, I started to lose my drive. I started to lose all of the momentum that I had, and I started to go back into that excuse mode, that blame mode. I started to not want to be healthy, and I didn't care that I was still here and things like that. All these negative thoughts. And then one day I ended up going back to the hospital because I had a standing or resting heart rate of 150 beats a minute. And I also had a temperature of like 104 degrees. I was there for an entire week. And when I got out, me and Lauren sat down and we had one of the deepest discussions of my life. It was by far probably the biggest turning point in my life, where she basically sat down with me and said, Matt, if you don't do the things you need to do to get healthy, don't expect to be around much longer. And she didn't mean it in a mean way. She meant it as in like, you need to get your stuff together. And I took it to heart. So the next day, I literally grabbed a pair of 5-pound dumbbells and I started doing bicep curls. And the next day I did the same thing. And the next day I did the same thing. And then I started to walk a little further. And then I started to eat a little healthier, little brick by little brick every single day. It wasn't like, oh, I'm doing all of this. It's just little things every day. Within about a month and a half, I gained about 25 pounds. I was walking further. I was eating healthier, doing all these things. Within 3 to 4 months, I gained about 25, 30, 40 pounds. And, it all was because of a turning point in my life and making small adjustments every day. That can be something in your business. If you feel like, you want to get to this destination, you need to realize that you need to take small steps to get there. Have a big, massive goal, but make sure you have small goals to get to that destination. And that was the only way I was going to get to my destination. And, really cool story. Another testimony of faith is about 4.5, 5 months after I was released from the hospital and I was doing well, I ended up going to see my oncologist. And I said, you know what? After I'm done seeing my oncologist, I'm going to go back to see my ICU nurses. So I went back and I went to go see my ICU nurses. At this point, I was looking a lot healthier. And the very first person I saw was the nurse that saved my life when I went into cardiac arrest. We started hugging, we started crying. He looked at me and he said, Matt, this is my last day in the ICU room. I'm not even supposed to be here today. They had to have an emergency nurse come in, and I volunteered to come in.
Wow.
And I'm getting shipped tomorrow to a different hospital. Once again, not a coincidence. I know for a fact that we still keep in touch. We have social media together. We follow each other on social media. We have each other's numbers. And once again, just another person being brought into my life for a reason. And then about 6 months later, my wound finally healed. And now fast forward to today, I'm healthy. I'm able to work out. I'm able to share my message and story to the world and hopefully help people who are going through some type of setback in their life and use it as a tool to push yourself forward, not drag yourself down. And in addition, I'm also a transformational coach and just helping people through that. So I hope this story really helped you guys. And I'm super grateful that I was able to be on this Zoom together with you guys.
Hey, Matt, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it's so inspirational. And I love the points. I was sitting there taking lots of notes, and I'm sure everybody else was as well. I do have a couple questions, and I will open it to the group to ask some other questions as we go forward. They can go to your website, Mustaches for Matt, if they'd like to find more information. And also some of your video, a part of the journey is on YouTube, on your YouTube channel as well. Can you point them where should they look on YouTube to find those?
Yeah, it's the same thing as my website. It's just Mustaches for FOR Matt, and it's just a channel. So that's the channel, what it's called. And there's a couple of different videos. Some are of like my journey, and then also me and my girlfriend started an episode called Dating After Diagnosis, where we each go through our journey together. So you get to hear her side and my side, and then we also start to talk about just life in general now after being diagnosed with cancer.
Thank you for that. Hey, we do what I call best ideas in our CEO retreat days. And those are, from the wisdom of others, hearing a best idea and then trying to apply those. I loved one of your best ideas of for the people that are in our life that we love, to let them know that and to show them that appreciation. So, hey, if you're on the video call today, I would encourage you to take just a moment to apply what Matt just talked about. Go ahead and text a friend, a family member, somebody that was important to you, that that God has brought into your life at just the right time, and let them know that you're just thinking about them and that you really appreciate them. Hey, I loved a couple of your points that you gave to us about how to come back after a difficult moment. I loved that you were authentic, and I just want to ask a couple questions about the journey. You talked about your dog Duke, and here you have this diagnosis and you have this pain and all these things, and then it's just that extra. I mean, obviously dogs are really part of the family, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a great advocate for animals and dogs and all that, so I'm not trying to lessen that. But my point is, I mean, having that added to your pile at just that moment, but that really became a defining moment. How do you look back now and see, when you have one hit and then you have a second hit or a third hit, what do you encourage people to think about when it just seems like it's just piling up on them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I went through a lot of setbacks and it just seemed like they would never end. But my best advice is, like I said before, look how this setback is happening for you, not to you. So if you can look at your setback as a lesson, look at it as a lesson, it's only going to help you push forward. The most successful people in the world go through setback after setback. They appreciate their failures more than they do their successes. So that's how I kind of started to do it, is saying, wow, this failure is only going to push me forward. And I have so many failures today as well. But I say, you know what? In the moment, yeah, this is hard and it's really difficult, but I know this is only making me grow stronger and becoming a better version of myself. So use your lessons or use your setbacks as a lesson, not an excuse to have somebody feel sorry for you or you feeling sorry for yourself. That's the only way I was able to get through this. And yes, I did have moments where I had a grieving period, or I had a period where I started to go into those negative thoughts. But now, the more you practice these things, the quicker you can get out of them. When you practice saying, okay, I have this setback, and yes, I feel like this in the moment, but the quicker you get out of it and the quicker you keep pushing forward, is the quicker you'll get more successful, the quicker you get out of whatever type of adversity you're going through.
Boy, that's helpful, isn't it? It's a lot of times that battle that happens in our mind, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to say,
It
hey,
is. It's. I would say almost everything's in your mind. Even in a physical journey. I've been a personal trainer for 8 years, and my biggest thing that I see with my clients is teaching them how to mentally overcome their obstacles, not physically. So eating the right foods is, you have to mentally challenge yourself to go and eat the right foods, or get yourself up to go work out, or just in business in general, anything. So.
well, talk a little bit. I love the piece of your candidness about the 3-week journey from laying in the bed after that surgery to a whole week before you could even set up, and then making that progression. When we think about setting up as an example, that for most of us, we don't think much of it, but yet for you, it was an entire week process of battling and saying, hey, I need to set up. What did you do when you were tempted to give up? As you were, I mean, that was a long process just to set up, as an example. So how did you continue to keep your mind positive and deal with some of the frustration of, hey, I'll never set up, or man, it's taken me a week to do this, or how long is
Yeah.
it?
So for me, I, it's really that mentality of, you can't give up on yourself. You're gonna have bad days, but like, it's like anything in life. You are gonna have bad days, but if you just never give up, this is why so many people fail in business. They have these things where they have this challenge in their life, and they're like, okay, I'll go and I'll push forward, and then they have that second challenge, and they're like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm done. I'm out. See you later. And that's why most businesses fail. And that's why most people in life don't get to a destination they want to, because they're so quickly to give up on themselves. What I always ask people, what is the price what is your price to sell you out, basically? Meaning, if someone were to say, oh, I'll give you this much money to not do your purpose in life or not do your passion, what would it be? For me, I don't care what people give me, because I am going to help people for the rest of my life, no matter what it is. So, no challenge, no obstacle is going to, take me away from my destination. And for me, yes, I had, mental challenges that I had to overcome, but I just said, I'm never going to give up on myself. And I never give up on yourself either, no matter what you're going through. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what situation you're in. If you're still breathing and you're still alive, you still have a fighting chance.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Hey, a couple more questions and I'll open it up to the group. You talked about your faith and the story of the prayer time when you were in your coma, and the third time that the church was praying or people were praying, and that's when you woke up. Um, I know your faith is important to you and it's guided you through a lot of this journey that you've been on. Was there ever a time that you were mad at God, or that you questioned God and say, hey, God, why me?
Oh, yeah.
How did you deal with that? And are there a couple maybe Bible stories or Bible verses that have really shaped you during this time?
Yeah, for me, oh my gosh, yeah, there's plenty of times where I was just like, I was a little angry with God, because I was like, why are you like, I understand that you're putting me through these challenges, God, but like, why do I keep getting these setbacks, and it keeps seeming to get worse, and it keeps seeming to get worse? Like, if you want me to go, just let me go, and I know he was just priming me up, because now I can share this amazing story that hopefully can impact people. And I know that all of these things that he puts us through, that all of these things that God puts us through, is only making us stronger in the outcome, in the grand scheme of things. And yes, I was angry. I was angry from the very beginning of, like, I felt like my life was great. I was healthy. I had my girlfriend. We were doing great. And then I had I'm diagnosed with cancer, and I say, God, why am I diagnosed with cancer? But then I said, you know what? Then I quickly got out of it, and I said, okay, God, how am I doing this? And then I'd have my next setback, and I'd be asking him again. But now I don't even question him. Every time that I feel like I'm having a situation that is challenging to me, I say, God, thank you for giving me this challenge in my life. God, thank you for giving me this opportunity. This is how I look, as an opportunity, not even a challenge. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to either help somebody or to become a better version of myself. And that's how I kind of work with God now, is I just, every day in the morning when I wake up, I just pray and I say, dear God, thank you for the opportunities that you give me. Thank you for the struggles, because I know it's going to make me a better person. And thank you for the people in my life. And, it's kind of funny, because like, when you pray about something, every single time I prayed about something, it's somehow manifested into my life so far. It's just crazy. Like, asking for a speaking opportunity, or asking to give me a purpose in life. I'm going to share one quick story. I said, so when I was recovering still, I didn't have any clarity on what I wanted to do. I was going through all this trauma, and I just recovered. I was probably a year out of me being diagnosed with cancer. And I was asking God, I said, God, okay, so I went through all of this, but what's my next step? I don't really know my next step. And all of a sudden, one day, I come across this video of this man. His name is Ed Milet. I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of his name, but he's an inspirational speaker. He's a CEO, very successful person. And he changed my life. He talked about going through adversity and setbacks and using it to help other people. And that's why I said, you know what? This is what I'm meant to do. I got chills. I got like these chills in my body when I watched the video. And if you guys have ever gotten chills thinking of something, that is God telling you that this is what you're meant to do, and this is where you need to go. Don't take them as like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. Like, yeah, it's okay to be scared, but like, use it as like, oh my gosh, this is a sign to push yourself forward. So that's kind of how I work with God now, and he's helped me in so many ways. And yes, I was angry at him for a while, but now I just look at everything as an opportunity.
I like that idea of the chills being God speaking to you. Boy, that's helpful.
It is.
Romans 8:28 tells us, that God works all things out for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose. We're actually going to be looking at that in our prayer and devotional time tomorrow morning. I thought it'd be appropriate to look at it after our discussion today. But it is a mindset shift, that it's an opportunity, not necessarily a, just a difficulty that we have to go through. Hey, we are going to open this up to some questions. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you so that you can ask Matt your question specifically. Hey, I had another quick question though,
Yeah.
before I turn it over to the group. You talked about, I thought it was significant when you talked about leaving the hospital. You had all these nurses and people around you encouraging you to do the work that you needed to do. And then when you got home, you had a little bit of a letdown because you didn't have that accountability
Mhm.
around you. And, you know, your girlfriend uh, noticed that, and she was able to speak some real powerful words to you, right? So I know that that's been a big part of your journey as well, that you want to be that accountability for other people as they go on their health journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about what does healthy accountability look like, and how do you know when it's the right person that's inspiring you versus maybe somebody that's just criticizing you, or they don't
Yep.
really understand what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I'd always say like, yeah, exactly. So, um, I'll be honest. I still love all my friends from back in the day, but I've gained a ton of new friends now in this journey because the only way I'm going to get to my certain destination is being around people that are going to kind of understand where I'm trying to go and help me stay accountable to getting to that destination. You're the five people you hang around with. You're the average of the five people you hang around with. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but meaning if you're hanging around with five people that are kind of dragging you down and always talking about, you know, their glory days, or like, you know, they always have some type of criticism towards people, that's what your mind's going to gravitate towards. But if you're gravitating towards people who always want to lift you up and empower you and celebrate your victories and want to get you to that next destination, that's where you're going to get to be going. So, you know, holding yourself accountable is all about your environment and the people that you're around. And I always say follow your heart, not your mind. So like your heart is going to tell you whether that person is real. Like you have, when you have a gut feeling, that's your heart. So when you have a gut feeling around somebody, you know, like, okay, this person is genuine and they want to help you, or this person just wants your money, or this person just wants, you know, wants the credibility from you, or whatever it might be. So my best advice is, first, if you aren't in a healthy environment, you need to change that, because that's the key to success is your environment. And then number two is you need to follow your heart, not your mind. Your mind's going to tell you one thing and your heart's going to tell you another, but I always follow my heart, and that always leads me into the right direction. So
I appreciate that thought about having people understand where you want to go. Boy, I think that's really critical, right? So
yep.
they're seeing what's important to you. They're coming alongside. They recognize what you're trying to accomplish, and they're reminding you of, hey, this is where you want to go, and I'm here to help you in that. And I just think that's a valuable component of it. But boy, what a great part of that story, because you know, as leaders and business owners and CEOs, I think a lot of times, or you know, even I call them rugged individualists, right? That maybe we were raised that way. We try to do it all by ourselves. And your whole point about there's a greater network around you, right? That can inspire you and motivate you, how important that is to remind ourselves. And even right now,
Yeah.
right? As we're going through this difficult time in business, we're not going through it alone. Our network is bigger than what we thought it was. There's people that'll be there to help us when we need it. Hey, we did get a question from Ed. Ed asked, he said, how was your faith before this experience? Did this deepen it, or was it
Oh,
similar?
deepened it for sure. 100%. I was, you know, I would always go to church with my mom. And then when I was in college, we had like a church that we could go to in college. So I would go there probably every other week. But then I started to fall off a little bit. Once I graduated from college, I didn't start going as much as I should have. And I was definitely still believed in God, and I still, you know, prayed and stuff, but I was falling a little bit away from him. And I felt like I was doing some stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. It's not, I wasn't like doing drugs or anything like that, but I just wasn't living a lifestyle that I knew I shouldn't have. And I knew that there was more potential and there was more of a journey for me. So definitely when I was diagnosed, honestly, like if I didn't put my hands in God, like I know I wouldn't be here today. Like that was a crucial part in me mentally overcoming a lot of my challenges and stuff like that. So it was just huge and really difficult for me to do that. So like I know for a fact, like if I didn't have God by my side, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Well, I think and I've watched all Matt's videos and his story. And if you need some information, I've shared a few of those, obviously, with our team and some of the groups. I would encourage you to go to his YouTube channel. When you look at his story and see what he's had to go through, and then know that the faith was a component of that helped him get his mindset right, know that God was walking with him through that process. It just inspires anybody that watches those videos to say, hey, whatever I'm facing, I can overcome it. I have a God that cares for me, that can help me through these difficult times. Hey, I got another quick question.
Yeah, when you can put your
Go ahead.
oh yeah, go for it.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say when you put your faith in God and put your hands in God in these difficult situations in life, I'm telling you, He does miracles for you. I've lived it. I've seen it firsthand, so I don't question it anymore. And I promise you, like, you have to fully put your faith in your hand in your, whatever situation you're going. You just have to give yourself to Him, because if you're just like, oh, I'm kind of like, hey God, just help me in this situation or this or that, that's not how it works. You need to fully give yourself to God, and He will do miracles for you. I promise you. So
Boy, that's a good challenge for all of us. Sometimes I think it's easy, especially in difficult moments. We want to hold back a little bit because we like to be in control, right? And just to go all in and say, God, you're in control of this situation. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you're going to use it, right?
yeah.
But I believe you will, right? And even in Joseph's case, I love the Joseph story in the Bible, right? That, here he was called to be second in command of Egypt, and God promised him. He said, hey, I'm going to lead you to this place where you'll be able to save your family and save the nation. But, he had to go through the pit. He had to be a slave servant in Potiphar's house. He had to go through prison, before he ended up in the palace. And
Yeah.
God had a reason for each one of those destinations. And it refined Joseph who he was, so that he was ready to assume that position that God had for him. But it's hard when we're in the midst of the pit or prison to say, oh, this is a good thing, or that God's in, but it is, it's a total commitment to
That's
Him.
where you surrender.
Hey, I had a quick question on your health. I know health is important to you, and that's one of the things that you help people with. You do your total transformational coaching, and you help them with their mindset, but you also help with their body and some of the physical health. Could you give us a couple of health tips today? I mean, especially if when we're in quarantine and maybe we can't get out. How important is a person's health, and what should they do to enhance their health?
Oh my gosh, health is everything. Your health is your vehicle, your engine to everything. If you aren't taking care of your health, don't expect to have the productivity you want, or the energy you want, or take out business. And by the time, you're 50, 60, 70, you could potentially having medical bills, or things you'd always want to do with your kids or your grandkids you might not be able to do. There's a bigger purpose behind having, a lot of people look at health as, I want to look good and I want to feel good. Yeah, that's great. That all comes with the perks. But the main purpose behind this is living a longer, more fulfilling, energized life, to be able to do stuff with the people you love when you want, for as long as you possibly can. And for me, health has always been my engine and always been my vehicle. And if I don't stay healthy, I find myself lacking all other areas of my life. And the best way to start off, in my opinion, is to just start eating a little cleaner. Very simple steps. I don't make this thing complicated for people. I just say start eating cleaner. Make sure you're hydrated. Here's the 5 pillars I always talk about: is sleep, hydration, nutrition, exercise, and mobility. So like mobility is more like stretching and keeping yourself flexible. So if you can start to hit on all 5 of those pillars, I'll say it one more time: hydration, sleep, nutrition, working out, like staying active in some way, and mobility, you're going to find yourself, feeling so much better throughout your day. And it's not like you have to just do these massive goals and look like Hulk Hogan tomorrow, but it's like, or like look like the next, woman on the Sports Illustrated. It's, first thing I always tell people is you are enough. You are enough in the sense of like, God put you on this earth and to look a certain way, and you are enough. He created you in His own vision, in His own way. So, be proud of who you are, and just try to be the best person you can be. Don't compare yourself. It's good to be motivated by others, but don't compare yourself to others. So yeah, that's kind of my little quick overview on health and how important it is.
I think it's very helpful. Hey, I know you were a trainer before and you were healthy, and then obviously you talked
Mm-hmm.
about that they removed your um, abs and that whole area and put a mesh down there. Was there a part of you? I'm
Yep,
just curious. This is more of a personal question, but was there a part of you that thought about
totally
pivoting
fine.
in that point, and you said, "Hey, I can't work out like I had in the past, and so maybe I shouldn't go back into working out," or was that more of a motivation?
Nope. I was so into working out and lifting. I said, no matter what, I'm gonna find a way to do this. I don't care what it is. I don't care how it is. I'm gonna find a way. So this is how I did it. I would just start off with one or two exercises, see if it would bother me, and if it didn't, I'm like, great, I can do this exercise. Then if I find one that I can't do, then I say, okay, I can't do this exercise. But that's a limiting belief on yourself. You got to try something before you can do it. I mean, I'm not saying to go like skydiving or anything crazy. Like, I'm not saying you have to do these insane things, but you need to go out of your comfort zone, go out of your box a little bit and give things a try because, most of the time people say they can't do something. They never actually tried it. And that's just a limiting belief they put on themselves.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just talking about health and just as an encouragement. I know we have Kathy Troxel who runs Turning Point Financial, which she cares about her customers and helps them with their financial plans, and a lot of business owners. I highly recommend Kathy. But one of the things that I found out as I started to work with companies like Kathy is that one of the biggest expense that most people don't think about in retirement is their health expense, right? And when they've had years of not taking care of their body and they get to retirement age, or they're all of a sudden they're spending not only just a normal amount but a much larger amount. And I've heard that the best retirement plan that people can have is taking care of their personal health. So I think that's fantastic. Hey, Doug's got a
Yeah.
question for
Yep.
us. It says, how do you encourage other younger cancer patients, and how have you connected those that are going through what you've encountered?
Yeah. So, couple ways. So first, cancer patients who are going through it, their first thing is like they want to know like, how is chemotherapy? How are all these things that they're about to encounter, or if they are going through it, like sometimes me just expressing the same feelings that they're going through right now in a relatable way helps people so much. So when I was going through chemotherapy, I ended up, what Cleveland Clinic does is they have what's called a Fourth Angels program, where they have cancer survivors as mentors for other cancer patients. So I ended up getting hooked up with a cancer survivor that went through the same exact chemotherapy as me. So when I was talking to that person, I was able to completely relate. Like if I told like my Lauren or my parents, I'm just not feeling good today, this medicine's really hitting me hard. They're like, they can't say, oh, I can relate or anything. But then when I'm talking to the other person, my friend now, his name's Ronnie, he would be like, trust me, man, I felt this, this, and this, and it would help me so much. So that's what I'm kind of doing with these other cancer patients is like, I'm listening to what they're going through. And if I can relate, I will share my exact thoughts, my exact feelings, and it really helps them. And then I would share also what I did to mentally kind of overcome that challenge that I was facing in the moment. So if I was feeling extremely fatigued, I would say, hey, man, most important thing is try to stay hydrated and get some rest. You can't do everything in one day, especially during this stuff, like things like that. And the way I'm actually a Fourth Angels now mentor for the Cleveland Clinic too. So I am able to mentor different cancer patients, but I also work with different nonprofit organizations, such as like Almond Cancer Fund, which is a young adult cancer organization, where I just work with them. And if they need anybody to talk to one of their, not, I wouldn't say patients, it's more just like one of the cancer, people going through cancer that's part of the organization, I'm happy to help them out in any way possible.
That's fantastic. And we have about 10 minutes left with Matt. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to send it to me privately or put it in the chat group. I did get a private message about the limiting beliefs. And Matt, how do you decide if it's a limiting belief versus just some self, I mean, do you recognize, like, do you keep a journal and say, oh, I'm repeating this belief over and over again, and I know this, I've got to break through? Or how do you identify that? And then is there some steps that you take other than you just decide, hey, this is a limiting belief and I'm not going to let it limit me any longer? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So for me with limited beliefs, how I look at it is if I've tried it more than like 2 or 3 times and like I feel like I'm making some progress in it, I know that it was just a limited belief. For example, like my health, for example, like, hey, I want to try this exercise. And the first time I try it, I'm like, I had a little pain here and there. Okay, I'm going to try one more time, but I'm going to try a different way of doing it a little bit. I'm going to adjust. I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to pivot. And when I do that, oh, wow, this doesn't bother me anymore. I'm still able to hit the muscle group I want to. Or like in your business, like, oh my gosh, like this, this crisis has happened and, there's no way I can recover from my business. Well, have you thought of all possible options? Have you really thought of all possible options? Because if you haven't, then that's just, once again, a limited belief that you're putting on yourself. So, talking to other people and, it's not, you go outside of yourself too. Ask other people for some advice sometimes, because somebody who, I always look towards the people who've been there, that I want to be at and have already done it at a grand stage. And I look at how they've done it. And sometimes I'm able to get in contact with them. And if I am, I ask them anytime I have a limited belief of like, oh my gosh, is this something you went through? They're like, yeah, man, this is what I went through and this is how I dealt with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. So yes, there are times where there's like, you can't get through certain things, like, but how I look at it is focus on the things you can control, not the things you can't control. Because when so many people focus on things they can't control and they let that define them, when really the things you can control, that's what you need to be focusing on and pushing yourself forward.
Yeah,
I hope that helped. I kind of went off, but I hope that helped a little bit.
no, I think that's very, very fantastic. I I call them bad beliefs, right? So I look
Yeah.
at the Adam and Eve in the garden. I say they were the first business owners. They owned a garden business, right? That they had to take care of the
Yeah.
garden for and Eve fell into some bad beliefs, right? She believed she had to go look at the tree of knowledge. She thought, boy, I got to go and explore every single thing in the garden, where God told her not to, right? And then she gets there and she kind of began to believe she needed to taste it. She wanted to taste it. She wanted to interact. And then when the snake even is having that conversation with her, the serpent, he's saying, hey, did God really say that you shouldn't eat of the fruit? She says, well, we can't even touch it, right? So she
Yeah.
even went further. She had this belief. And so I use that as a launching point to talk about some of these bad beliefs that we have as business owners and CEOs. And I'll just say this real quick, but I think the biggest bad belief or negative belief is that we have to do it all by ourselves. Just what
Yeah.
Matt was talking about before, right? That, God never called any great leader to lead alone. And so we've got to get out of that mindset of we've got to do it all. We've got to do it all by ourselves. Um, I'm just curious. I'm really intrigued by your story. And if I can ask another question about you said you spent a week on the bed and before, after that surgery, and all you could do was pray during that time, right? And did you learn something about prayer in that time when for so many of us, we maybe we relegate prayer to the last thing that we do, or when we're really in desperate need. But here you're stuck in a bed and that's all you can do. Tell me about that week and how
Yeah.
did you pray and what did you learn about prayer during that time?
The one thing I learned was being present. Being
Mm,
present, super important. Too often when we pray, we pray about like something that's happened in our past, or we pray about like, oh my gosh, I need to get to this destination. God, help me. I need to get there now. And we're so antsy to get there when really we just need to sit back and ask for the help now. Ask for being present. So when you're present in, praying or present in just anything in life, that's when the answers and the opportunities and things you never thought could happen open up. So my best advice, that's what I was doing. I was in a point where I had no option but to just be present, because I wasn't able to go forward. And shoot, I'd already gone through so much in the past. Now I'm just in the spot where I'm like, I'm in the now. I'm in my lowest point. I just need to get out of it. And that's my best advice is when you're asking for something, be in the present. It's good to have these massive goals and get somewhere, but you got to be in the present in order to get to that destination.
Yeah, just speaking about, I love tying the present with even those small steps. Your last point about, you had a bigger goal, but you really broke it down to smaller goals that you could say, hey, here's the first step that I can do, or here's the first action that I can take, and asking God to just help us in that first step. We may not know the 10 steps that we can take, but sometimes God will reveal that first step. Hey, we have about time for one more question. Who has
I
the
got something in the chat. Jason asks, being from Cleveland, who is now more beloved, LeBron James since he left again, or Ralphie, A Christmas Story? Oh man, I love that. I mean, LeBron is always loved now because he brought us a championship that like we had not seen in forever. But I do feel like everyone does love A Christmas Story too. I've actually been to the actual house, which is pretty cool. It's not too far. It's like 25 minutes from where I live. So we'll call it 50-50. We'll say 50-50.
Well, Cleveland's come back a lot of ways too. I mean, I actually worked in Cleveland years ago, right out of college, so I have a fond uh, um, memories of Cleveland. I remember I went to the old Cleveland Browns Stadium way back when.
Mhm.
They used to call it the Mistake by the Lake, right? And
Yeah, oh yeah, yes they did.
and now they have now they've really reorganized downtown, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city.
LeBron is honestly like without LeBron, I mean, he's built this city up really because of all the revenue that's been able to come in from finals to playoff games to just season ticket holders and everything. Like he's really helped this organization a lot, or the city a lot. So yeah, we've grown. I mean, just from me, I mean, I'm only 28, but from the time I was 15 to now, so the past almost 15 years, oh my gosh, it's night and day, night
Yeah.
and day.
But that's really an example of what you're talking about, that sometimes a step back is really a setup for the future, right? And that's what you do in that transformational coaching, and that's what you even do in your speaking engagements. You really remind people, even to your first point, that it's not really something that's happening to you, it's an opportunity for you. And I
Yep.
love that message, Matt. I think that message is so
Thank you.
critical for every business owner, every CEO, every person to embrace in our life, because we're going to have those times of setback. We're going to have difficulties, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's relational. So I do encourage you. Matt is available for public speaking if you'd like him to come in to speak at an event or a conference. When things come back, you can
Yes.
find his
Would love
contact
to.
find his contact information on the Mustaches for Matt website. Um, Also, he does do transformational coaching. And so do you want to just talk just a moment about the kind of coaching that you do and what that
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, of course. So I really help people who feel like they're stuck in some point of their life. And it's generally somebody, whether it's like in business or it could be their family, relationships. And what I do is I help them through mind, body, spirit, and then impact. So here's how it goes. Everything that happens in your life. So like when you have some type of adversity, the first thing you need to do to overcome it is to have a right mindset. So I help tackle the mindset issues that you're having, the different, like I said before, the limited beliefs, whether you're procrastinating or you have this self-doubt or you're worried what other people think of you. All of these things, I help you to eliminate that. Then we focus on the health because like I said that before, your health is your engine to your productivity, to your energy, to everything in life. So we tackle your health, which is like my bread and butter because I've been doing it for so long. I help with nutrition, sleep, hydration, working out, mobility. I help with all of those. Then we go into the next phase, which is a spiritual journey. It's with faith and also just like a journey of discovering your purpose. So like for us, it would be, what is God's message now telling us to go do? And let's go figure out our purpose in life. What's that next step? Once we discover our purpose and we have that spiritual journey, how are we going to impact the people through our journey and message? We've now found our passion. We've now found our purpose. How are we going to go out and impact these people? And that's what I try to help people do is use all four of those pillars and really create a life out of themselves and discover something, because we're all meant for something amazing in our lives. And some of you are already on that path and you're on that journey. And if you can just use those 4 pillars, if you're just stuck in a little spot, it'll help you get out of it and just keep going forward. So that's my transformational coaching. And yeah, if anybody's feeling stuck or needs some guidance, I'd be happy to see if you're a good fit and help you out in any way I can.
Excellent. Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
thank you for being here today. You're an inspiration, and I know you've had a lot of difficulty in your life, but I'm so grateful and thankful that God has inspired you to be on a mission to help other people. And I know that I'm just so excited about a young guy like yourself that is really going to be making the difference for years and years and years to come. You're making a difference already in our lives today. So I'm proud to know you. I'm thankful that you came in and shared with us today. And I'll be looking forward to maybe doing some things together in the future. If you're on the call today, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully that this was a little inspiration to start off your week. We do have another CEO conversation coming up this Wednesday at 1:00 with Lisa Jones, who's the CEO of Goodwill Industries. It's an international company. Obviously, we see a lot of Goodwills all over the country. They have over 4,000 team members, and they're in over 200 countries. So Lisa's doing a great work, primarily focused on, she's a woman, obviously, in leadership, but working on those different team members. So if you'd like to register for that, you can go back to our Eventbrite, or you can send a message to me directly. But thank you guys for being here. I'm praying for each of you, and hopefully out of this session, that we take these setbacks and then we allow them to set us up for a new breakthrough, a new innovation, so that we can really accomplish the purpose and that God has for us. So Matt, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate everybody being on today, and God bless you. And hopefully I'll talk with some of you very soon. So thank you again, Ken. I appreciate it.
You're